So I finally took a look at DBZ Kai. It took me a long time, but I finally gave it a look, and I see why people prefer it over the OG DBZ. So if there's ever been a question for those who don't know, what's the difference between DBZ Kai? Is DBZ Kai really better than OG Dragon Ball Z? Yes, yes, it's better. It's much better. And while the fights between primarily Frieza and Goku, I think is the main example of like pacing issues when it comes to DBZ. you- At least me, I didn't realize how much of a difference DBZ Kai makes when it comes to correcting the pacing, from the original anime from back in the day. DBZ Kai is like I think it was like supposed to be a 20th anniversary celebration anime that was supposed to re-air, get the OG Dragon Ball Z anime re-aired. There were certain things that were different about it. I think this was back either in Jetix or Disney XD, one of the two, back when that was around. And at the time, I just didn't see the appeal. I was like, why are they pushing a show that we've already seen? They updated the intro and gave the intro like more updated animation. But when you start to watch it, it's like, this is the same animation from before. It's the same arcs. There's nothing new. So as a kid, I didn't understand, maybe like a preteen or so, I didn't understand the appeal of DBZ Kai. I was like, this is very redundant. So some months ago, I finally gave it a watch. And now I understand why. For those who don't know, the main correction that DBZ Kai makes to the original anime, there's two parts. There's the pacing, as I already said, but then there's also the dialogue. Some may consider it a correction, but there's also the OST is different and some would say better. But I would definitely say, without a doubt, the pacing and the dialogue is so much better. And again, as someone with limited access and like experience reading manga growing up, I didn't know that the dialogue in Kai was more on point with the dialogue in the manga. Whereas I guess the OG anime, Dragon Ball Z anime, they took some more, I guess, liberties with them, so it was not accurate. There are quite a few moments that I loved from the dialogue, but I'm gonna stay with Goku versus Frieza. I'm gonna just talk about that because as far as the pacing and the dialogue, I feel like that fight is the crown jewel when it comes to like the improvements that they made. When it comes to the pacing, the main issue with the OG Dragon Ball Z anime, for anyone who's like, if you're trying to get into something and you're trying to get into an anime that everyone knows and why is it so hype, Dragon Ball Z obviously often comes up, but don't watch the OG Dragon Ball Z. Watch Dragon Ball Z Kai. You're not going to sit in limbo as long with certain events. And again, the main example I'll go with is Goku versus Frieza. Because Goku versus Frieza in the OG anime, the fight takes place in like 5 or so minutes. At least once he becomes a Super Saiyan and Frieza decides to be a coward and try to destroy planet Namek, it's supposed to be a 5-minute interaction. But they managed to stretch that fight, I think, for over 20 episodes or something like that back in the day. Something crazy. 5 minutes, even when they changed perspectives between different characters, 5 minutes of events took 20 episodes to close so that they can actually close out the, I guess, Namek saga. Because I guess the overall Namek saga is split between different arcs in itself. So at one, like the actual Frieza arc is when Frieza shows up. But at one point there was like a Ginyu Force arc maybe, which even the timing for all that is crazy because, well, no, Namek never has a nighttime. It's always daytime on Namek. But even then, the whole Namek saga, I think, takes place over the course of a week, something like that. It's not long at all. And yet, in the OG anime, you would think like a year plus has passed as long as they took to do certain things, especially leading up to the Super Saiyan transformation. So that's the main thing that's different. With that fight, that once Goku becomes a Super Saiyan, and then their fight like really gets going and Frieza's full power, and now he's worried about Planet Namek blowing up and taking both of them with him. That's where it's like supposed to be a 5-minute countdown, but it doesn't feel like 5 minutes. I didn't think this was like such a memorable thing to people before I watched DBZ Kai until I was watching Black Clover. The Black Clover fight, but with Yami and Asta versus Dante, I'm addicted to that fight. I've been addicted to that fight since it came out. And I think that fight came out when I was in college. So that's a handful. That's at least 5 years. And I didn't know like it was that big of a deal until one of my homeboys, because we both kind of are obsessed with the fight. And he was like, he liked how Asta got that, devil like power up a little bit in his arm so that he could beat Dante. And if he landed a hit on Dante, then Dante would effectively lose. But he had a 50-second countdown. He didn't even have a full minute. And even though the fight in reality takes like 2, maybe 3 minutes in video format, it still does better of holding on to that 1 minute time limit. And my homeboy is like, I like how he had 50 seconds and they actually gave him 50 seconds instead of pulling a Goku and Frieza, where it's like, yeah, 5 minutes, but it feels like hours have went by. That's when I realized I didn't know that people held on to that much. So even though in DBZ Kai, the length of that fight is still a good amount of time, including after he becomes a Super Saiyan, you still got a few episodes. It's a few episodes. It's like a handful of episodes. It's not 20 plus, but this is all supposed to track, relatively speaking, 5 minutes of events, which is not inherently bad. I actually think that type of idea has been done before, but it's a matter of intent and how it comes across to the audience. And, back in the day, it really drew out. It was like, it was interesting and we were kids and we liked it and we'll always love it, but it drew out. So that's one thing I'm glad that DBZ Kai corrected. Another thing I'm really happy they corrected was the dialogue, which of course I didn't know at the time. But one of the best pieces of dialogue from DBZ Kai, I'm addicted to. I'm probably going to watch it again now that I'm talking about it. Again, the Goku versus Frieza fight. Of course, Goku's like mentally, telepathically in the conversation, trying to tell Supreme Kai and some of the other people what wishes to make with the Dragon Balls, but he wants to be left behind on Namek. He doesn't want to be saved. He doesn't care if the planet's about to explode or anything. He wants to stay and fight Frieza to the death, like truly to the death. And he's not normally a fight to the death type of guy, but this one, he's willing to do it. Because the thing that triggered his Super Saiyan transformation was the death of his friend Krillin, which Frieza did. Frieza killed his best friend, which, keep in mind, for those who don't know, Krillin has been around as Goku's best friend since the OG Dragon Ball series. Because Dragon Ball came first, then it was Dragon Ball Z, then it's all this other stuff, Super and Daima and all that. That's later. So in their timeline, Krillin and Goku have been best friends for decades, at least a couple decades, or at least a decade, because it's not as much of a time skip between him defeating King Piccolo or Ma Jr. and when Raditz and the Saiyans show up. I think it's only like a few years, but either way, they've been best friends for at least a decade. So obviously Frieza being responsible for his best friend's death pisses him off, hence leading to the Super Saiyan transformation. But the speech from the OG Dragon Ball like rant when he tells King Kai that I'm not leaving, I'm going to get my leg back for my homeboy, the DBZ Kai is so much better. It comes across as more actually like enraged and passionate. There were moments, and I always thought it, but I never like looked into it. In the OG Dragon Ball Z anime, there were certain pieces of dialogue where Goku's supposed to be pissed off, but it doesn't come across that way. If anything, there are times where he can come across kind of indifferent. He's mad, but his tone in the dialogue doesn't carry it that well. Versus DBZ Kai, when he's telling Supreme Kai to leave him and he's going to get his lick back for Krillin, he said one of the dopest phrases I've ever heard him say, which was, at least while Frieza was charging up. That's another detail. Frieza was charging up at full power so that he could fully fight Goku like at his maximum, because the entire Frieza saga or Namek saga was building up through his transformations up until we felt like he was finally being challenged, because almost everyone that came across Frieza's path couldn't really challenge him for real. But Goku as a Super Saiyan could challenge him. So now Frieza felt the need to go into his full power to take this guy down. Goku was willing to just stand there and let it happen. So between Goku risking his life by letting Frieza reach full power, he's risking his life because he doesn't want to leave Namek, which is about to blow up in 5 minutes. He's more consumed with anger than anything. King Kai is still pleading, like, please leave. Come on, we gotta go. But when Supreme Kai is trying to convince Goku to leave Namek and to let Namek blow up and essentially take care of Frieza, itself, because he's essentially signed his own death warrant. And he says one of the coldest lines, waiting for him to power up, when Goku's waiting for Frieza to power up. He says, that he wants to fight Frieza head on so that Frieza definitively knows that he was not good enough for him and that he would be battling a lot of things that day, but regret wouldn't be one of them. I fell in love. I fell in love at that moment. At that moment, I truly fell in love with DBZ Kai. I was like, why did I wait so long to see what? DBZ Kai got some bars in that show between primarily Goku. I want to say Vegeta too. I don't remember if Piccolo has any like real dope like dialogue that is drastically different from the OG Dragon Ball Z. I may have to give it another look, but that was the one. That was the one. There was a few, but that was the one that was like, oh, so we're getting this is Kakarot. Even the whole speech between like he gives the speech of like when he's terrifying Frieza because he makes his Super Saiyan transformation, which is supposed to be a transformation that's like legendary. It's supposed to be a myth. And Frieza, he was warned about it in a way, which we're kind of, given some insight to because of Bardock, I guess, time traveling, I guess. Frieza, he doesn't believe in the Super Saiyan, but he kind of does. He's kind of scared of it, but he kind of plays in the face of it at the same time. Now he has an actual blood and flesh Super Saiyan right in front of him. And he's like, he's shook. He's frozen. He can't think straight. He can barely get a sentence out, anything. And that's where he asks Goku, what are you? That's where you get two different versions of that speech, where I guess in the OG Dragon Ball anime or DBZ anime, the speech he gave, it was something like, I'm the Super Saiyan Goku, allied to the universe, enemy to you, something like that, which I never thought anything of. I was like, okay, that's fine. But it was more, I guess, arrogant. Like, Goku's never viewed himself as like a almighty protector or anything like that. He plays that role because he likes to protect people and especially protect people close to him. But he's never seen himself as like an intergalactic hero, superhero type guy. That's why, like, as smart as he can be in combat, he also has moments that's like, not all the, lights are on, not everyone's home. He still has that. So I guess for a lot of people, when it came to the original speech, it was a strange disconnect from his character and, just didn't mesh well with certain people in the fan base versus DBZ Kai was a lot better. DBZ Kai, one of the details that it's not like crazy to me, but I like the fact that in DBZ Kai, he actually refers to himself as his Japanese name because we Westerners call Goku just Goku, but we're actually supposed to call him Son Goku because, the whole thing with Asian folks, they refer to themselves by their family name before their individual name, their last name before their first name. He refers to himself as Son Goku in the English dub of DBZ Kai, which I found interesting. And in my younger self, I didn't understand it because I'm pretty sure I saw that clip growing up and I would see people refer to Goku as Son Goku. And before I got more into manga and actually was like, okay, I'll start reading, I didn't quite get it. But this time, obviously, I understood. And I was like, it's a small detail, but it's good because between the Saiyan Saga and the Namek Saga, yeah, everything was supposed to end in the Namek Saga. So after his fight with Frieza, Dragon Ball should have ceased to exist. It shouldn't have lasted this long. With that said, the Namek Saga was apparently intentionally meant to not only show kind of like a parallel between Goku and Frieza, with Frieza having a gradual increase in power over time until he finally maxed out by meeting Super Saiyan Goku in battle. But even with Goku, he's identified as a human his entire life. He didn't know he was an alien until Vegeta and Nappa got to Earth and started fighting him and made it known that we're part of an alien race and we are of the same race. He doesn't take to it right away because he's like, well, between his older brother that he didn't realize he had, as well as Vegeta and Nappa, and he sees the way that they behave, he's like, there's no way I'm one of you guys. There's no way. I'm an Earthling, and that's that. But then everything between the Saiyan Saga and mainly the Namek Saga happens where his power is growing. He gets a bunch of Zenkai boosts because the Namek Saga is when Zenkai boosts become like really relevant. Just a couple of them, he pretty much eclipses everyone else in battle in his base form until he goes Super Saiyan. And that's where, when he's like, I'm the Super Saiyan Son Goku, when he finally gives that speech, it shows a gradual increase not only in power, but a gradual increase in acceptance of his identity as a Saiyan. And when he finally says that to Frieza, that I'm the Super Saiyan Son Goku, it shows that he's finally come to terms with it in a relatively like extremely short amount of time. But it was important because at this point he couldn't deny it. He actually has found reason, despite how much he actually did. He said he did hate Vegeta. I don't know if he said that in the original anime, but in Kai he says he did hate Vegeta, but he respected him. And I think even having that connection with Vegeta and having a level of care and actually being pissed off that Frieza dishonorably took Vegeta out when that shouldn't have happened, I think that those are all symptoms of him gradually accepting himself. And that ultimately showed in the pinnacle of power that initially should have closed things off when he became a Super Saiyan. But that's where like some of the dialogue changes. The pacing is helpful because you don't lose sight of some of those details and part of the parallel, intentional or unintentional parallel between Frieza and Goku, all that stuff. Man, it is so great. I may have to watch it again to like refresh a bunch of the stuff because it's been a while. But DBZ Kai, I would definitely tell you. If someone tells you to watch Dragon Ball Z, don't watch the original Dragon Ball Z anime. Watch Dragon Ball Z Kai. And even if you do make your way through the OG Dragon Ball and then OG Dragon Ball Z, still watch DBZ Kai afterwards. You will see a difference. I didn't think I was going to see a difference because it looked like the exact same thing. No, you will see a difference. You'll hear a difference. Some parts will be better. Other parts you'll be like, I'll go with the OG on this one. But in my opinion, DBZ Kai more or less eclipses the OG Dragon Ball Z anime. It's freaking great. I wish I wasn't so late to it, but it's great. But I'll go ahead and leave this video off here, guys. Thanks for joining me. If you made it this far, for just letting me nerd out and y'all nerd out with me. Go and let me know your comments, thoughts, anything about DBZ, anime, other stuff you want me to talk about in the comment section below. See you guys in the next one. Later.